Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here again to really get into some fascinating material, try and make sense of it together, and hopefully offer you a clearer perspective.
That's the goal, taking complex ideas and sort of unfolding them.
Exactly. And today, we're tackling something that honestly comes up so often. It feels like a real sticking point for a lot of people exploring, personal growth or spirituality. It's this apparent conflict between stillness and action. On the one hand, you hear constantly about manifesting, creating, taking massive action, setting big goals. This whole culture of doing.
Yeah, the drive, the ambition is everywhere.
But then you also encounter this deep wisdom about surrender, about acceptance, finding peace in the now. Basically the power of just being.
The power of now, stillness teachings, yeah. Very different energies, seemingly.
Right. So it feels like a clash. How do you reconcile wanting things, striving, building a life or a business with just accepting what is, being present?
It's a fantastic question, and it causes a lot of confusion, I think. People wonder, am I doing it wrong? Should I be manifesting or meditating?
Precisely. So that's our mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
Is there really a fundamental conflict here? Is one approach misleading? Or can we actually bring together this outward movement into the world, into form, with the inward return to our essence, to the source?
And the sources we're looking at today, they come from someone who really delved into consciousness itself, and they offer a framework that goes beyond just picking one side.
Okay, good. Because the either thinking feels limiting.
It is. The idea is that these aren't opposing forces, but actually two fundamental, necessary movements happening everywhere all the time. We need to see the bigger picture first, the cosmic context, before we can really understand our own human struggle with it. So to get at this human tension between doing and being, we first need to look at how the universe itself operates. Our sources suggest there are these two basic drives.
Okay, two universal drives. What's the first one?
The first is this incredible, almost unstoppable outward push. The drive to manifest, to create form. It's like the universe just loves creating. For the sheer joy of it, perhaps.
You see that everywhere, don't you?
Absolutely. Just look at this planet. The millions and millions of life forms, the sheer variety.
Yeah.
It's staggering. And this isn't just happening here. The sources emphasize this is likely playing out across the vastness of space, too. Constant creation, constant differentiation.
And it's not always gentle, is it, this creation process?
No, not at all. That's a key point. It's dynamic, often quite, violent in a way. It involves things coming into being, existing for a time, and then destruction.
Like the food chain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Life sustains itself by consuming other life. Forms break down to create new forms. It's a continuous high-energy transformation.
So creation and destruction are sort of two sides of the same coin in this outward movement.
Yes, and inherent in that dynamic energy is conflict.
Friction.
Challenges. They're baked into the very fabric of manifested reality, of form.
I like the analogy the sources use about movies.
Oh, it's perfect, isn't it? Imagine watching a film where absolutely nothing went wrong. Everyone agreed. Every plan worked instantly. No obstacles.
It would be incredibly boring. You'd walk out.
Right. There'd be no story, no drama, no interest, conflict, challenges, things not going according to plan. That's what makes the play of form engaging for consciousness.
That's a really helpful perspective, I think, because so many of us spend our lives trying to eliminate all friction, all conflict, aiming for this perfect, smooth existence.
And in doing so, we're kind of fighting the natural flow of this outward creative impulse of the universe itself. It needs the friction to be interesting.
Okay, so this outward drive creates diversity, energy, transformation, and even conflict. What else does it lead to?
It leads inevitably to complexity. Over immense stretches of time, life forms, ecosystems, and especially human societies, they just become more and more complex, more differentiated, more specialized.
You definitely see that today. Our world feels incredibly complex.
Arguably the most complex civilization in history. And the sources suggest that this extreme complexity inherently brings with it, a lot of problems. More potential points of friction, more things that can go wrong.
Like all the different systems needing to interact perfectly.
Yes, and think about knowledge itself. The analytical mind, which is part of this complexification, loves to break things down into smaller and smaller pieces. Specialization.
You mentioned the PhD example before we started.
Right. Someone spending years becoming the world expert on, the left hind leg of a specific beetle. It's amazing in one way, the depth of knowledge. But it also creates fragmentation. We lose sight of the whole.
It sounds like it could just spiral, this complexity. Does it just keep going forever?
Well, the sources suggest it can't. There's a structural limit. Think about a tree.
Okay.
A tree's nature is to grow outward, right? Branching, expanding its canopy, that's its outward movement. But if it grows too many branches, gets too sprawling, too complex for its trunk and roots to support,
It becomes vulnerable. A strong wind comes along.
exactly, it collapses under its own weight or the storm takes it down. There's a natural limit to how complex a form can become before it needs to simplify or collapses. And our sources think that our current global civilization might be nearing such a point.
Wow. Okay. So the outward movement is essential, creative, but it has limits and inherent challenges, including complexity and conflict. What's the other universal drive then?
The second movement is the inward one. It's the counter movement, you could say. Beyond just manifesting endless forms, there's this deeper pull towards self-knowledge, with a capital S.
Self-knowledge, like the universe wanting to know itself.
Precisely. It's a drive towards peace, towards finding something stable, something untouched by all the constant change and fluctuation of forms, something eternal. It's the desire to know itself directly, in its essence, beyond the temporary appearances.
And that's where spirituality comes in.
That's the root of all genuine spirituality, yes. This
Yeah.
return movement, the journey back to the source, back to the one.
But you said earlier the source was never really lost.
That's the paradox, isn't it? It's timeless, always present. But consciousness, having gotten absorbed in the drama, the dream of form, needs a way to wake up within the dream, to remember its own nature.
So these two drives, outward creation and inward return, are happening simultaneously.
Yes. And every single one of us as human beings is living right at the intersection of these two immense universal currents. The urge to do, to create, to engage with the world. And that deeper longing to find peace, stillness, meaning.
So the tension we feel isn't just personal neurosis, it's cosmic.
It's a reflection of these fundamental forces playing out through us, through our temporary human form. Understanding that is the first step to finding some reconciliation.
Okay, so if these two movements are universal, how have humans typically related to them, particularly the outward doing part?
Well, historically, and for most people even now, our engagement with that outward movement, our actions, our creations, our conflicts, has been largely unconscious.
Unconscious, meaning
Meaning deeply identified with form. We mistake the temporary form, our body, our thoughts, our roles for who we truly are. This is the birth of the ego.
so the ego isn't some thing, it's more like a case of mistaken identity.
Exactly. The sources describe it beautifully. For consciousness to fully experience the play of form, it needs to believe in it completely. It enters this kind of dreamlike state. It gets lost in the roles, the drama, the appearances, convincing itself that the dream is the only reality.
And the core of that dream is the belief in separation.
Yes. The fundamental belief is, I am a separate entity. I have a life of my own. But the sources state clearly there's no such thing as your own life. There is only the one life, expressing itself through countless forms.
Believing you have your own life must create instant insecurity.
Instantly. Because if it's yours, you can lose it. It creates vulnerability, scarcity thinking, comparison, and ultimately the deep-seated fear of death, the fear of losing the separate self you believe yourself to be.
So let's break down this form identity, this ego. What parts of us does it include? It's not just thoughts, is it?
No, it's the whole package. It's your physical body, definitely, your name, your entire personal history, all the memories, the accumulated thoughts, beliefs, opinions, emotional patterns, and crucially, the roles you play.
Like job titles, family roles.
Absolutely. I am a doctor. I am a mother. I am an artist. I am a victim. I am successful. All these labels we attach to ourselves, they become layers of the form identity.
And we put so much energy into building and defending this identity, don't we?
Oh, immense energy. Think about writing an autobiography or years of therapy trying to understand who I am by digging through the past. The underlying assumption is often, if I can just define myself perfectly, piece together my whole story, then I'll finally feel whole and complete.
But it's built on sand, isn't it? Because the form is temporary.
That's the crucial point the sources hammer home. No matter how solid that identity feels, no matter how much effort you put into crafting it, it's fleeting. The body ages and dies, memories fade, your name might be forgotten. That whole elaborate structure you identified with, it just dissolves eventually.
And clinging to something that's inherently temporary, that's the recipe for suffering.
Guaranteed suffering. If your sense of self is tied entirely to your youthful looks and you get older, you suffer. If it's tied to your job title and you get laid off, you suffer. It's tied to your possessions and they get destroyed, you suffer because you believe a part of you is being lost or diminished along with the form.
This really sounds like the engine driving so much of modern life, this constant restlessness, the feeling of not enough.
It absolutely is. That deep sense of incompleteness that arises from identifying only with the temporary form, that's what fuels the endless cycle of wanting, needing the next thing.
Which the Buddha called desire.
Exactly. And this constant wanting, this sense of lack, is the absolute bedrock of our consumer economy, isn't it?
Yeah, advertising plays right into it.
Constantly. Advertising rarely sells just a product. It sells the promise of completing your identity. Buy this, and you'll be happy, successful, complete. It relies on keeping people in that state of dissatisfaction, always looking outside themselves for the next form, the next purchase, the next relationship, the next achievement, to fill that inner void.
But the feeling of being truly home, truly complete, it never arrives through accumulating more forms, does it?
Never, because you're looking in the wrong place. You're trying to patch up a temporary structure when the real foundation, the essence identity, has been forgotten.
So even high achievers, if they're driven purely by this egoic wanting, this need to prove themselves or fill a lack, they might build empires, but they're essentially building on that shaky ground, no real inner peace.
They're building a very elaborate, potentially impressive house, but without laying the foundation first. And eventually that structure is likely to feel hollow or even collapse under its own internal pressures.
Okay, so if the root problem is this mistaken identification with temporary form, then the solution has to lie in the other direction, right?
Yeah.
The inward movement.
Accessing this essence identity you mentioned, finding pure being.
Exactly. And the way to access it, conceptually at least, is quite radical. It involves mentally stripping away all the temporary forms you identify with.
How does that work? Like, just imagine taking them off.
Sort of. Imagine letting go of your past history, all your memories, letting go of any thoughts about the future, your plans, your worries, letting go of your name, your roles, your job title, even the constant stream of thinking. What's left?
Stillness, just awareness.
Yes, a sense of formless presence and aliveness. Consciousness itself before it takes on a specific thought or identity. That, according to the sources, is your essence identity. That's closer to who you truly are than all the labels combined. Wow, so the real me is actually more present when I don't remember my past or have a specific thought defining me. That's counterintuitive.
Deeply counterintuitive to the conditioned mind, but the insight is profound. You are never more truly yourself than when you are still. Stillness here means the mind is still. The internal chatter quiets down, even if there's noise outside.
And that core sense of I, just the feeling of being aware, that comes from this timeless essence.
Yes. It's not derived from your personal history or thoughts. It's the light of consciousness itself, which is ultimately one with the universal consciousness. It's always here, beneath the surface activity.
Okay, but stillness and being, they can sound a bit abstract. How do we actually find this? We're so used to thinking, analyzing, doing.
That's the key. You don't think your way into it. It's not something to be dissected or put into a neat intellectual box.
Yeah.
It's encountered,
Directly.
experienced. It's always available. The sources say it's closer than hands and feet. It's the feeling of being alive right now, the space between your thoughts, the quiet alertness when you really listen. Even calling it being or essence is just a pointer, a word trying to indicate something beyond words. You have to feel it.
And connecting with this is the antidote to the suffering caused by identifying with form.
It is. Because if your primary sense of self shifts from the temporary form to this timeless, formless presence, then the changes and losses in the world of form don't devastate you in the same way.
Like with aging.
Aging is a perfect example. If your whole identity is wrapped up in being young and strong, aging becomes a terrifying process of dissolution. But if you're rooted in the awareness behind the aging body, you realize that the core of who you are isn't aging. It's untouched. You can witness the form change without feeling that you are fundamentally diminishing.
This leads directly to what seems like the most critical point, the primacy of being. Action needs to come from this place.
Absolutely non-negotiable, according to these teachings. Conscious being must be the foundation for all effective and non-harmful doing. If your actions spring from that egoic place of, I'm not enough, I need to prove myself, I need to get something,
then the action itself is kind of contaminated from the start.
Precisely. It carries that energy of lack, fear, or grasping. We can go back to the building analogy.
Right, building the house.
You wouldn't dream of building a huge, complex structure, whether it's a business, a relationship, a creative project, without first laying a solid foundation. That foundation is your rootedness in being. in the timeless, formless dimension of yourself.
And if you skip that foundation,
You might be incredibly busy, achieve conventional success even, but you're likely creating more stress, more conflict, more suffering for yourself and others. You're acting out of reactivity, not true intelligence. The structure is inherently unstable.
but here's a potential objection. If I get really rooted in stillness, in being, won't that make me passive? Won't I lose my drive, my ambition? Don't you need a bit of ego push to achieve things in the world?
That's the common fear, and it's based on a misunderstanding. Rootedness in being doesn't destroy your power or effectiveness. It purifies it.
How so?
Because that timeless dimension, that stillness, isn't empty. It's the source of true intelligence, unconditioned intelligence. When your actions arise from that connected place, they aren't distorted by the ego's fears, insecurities, and agendas.
So the action is actually cleaner, more powerful.
Infinitely more powerful, ultimately, because it's aligned with a much larger intelligence than your little thinking mind trying to control everything. You move from frantic effort to inspired flow.
Okay, this is really getting to the heart of it. The challenge isn't choosing between stillness and action, but fusing them, creating conscious doing.
Exactly. It's not about meditating for half an hour and then spending the rest of the day running around unconsciously, driven by ego. The goal is integration, bringing being into doing.
How do we actually do that, moment to moment?
The crucial shift is moving your primary focus from the what to the how. Meaning, what you are doing, the specific task, the external activity becomes secondary. The how you are doing it, the quality of consciousness, the degree of presence you bring to the activity becomes primary.
So it elevates seemingly small things.
Absolutely. Any activity can become a practice in presence. If you're a carpenter, it's not just about skill with tools, it's about the presence flowing into the wood as you work. That's what gives the creation a deeper quality. If you're washing dishes.
You just be there, feeling the water, the soap, the plate.
Yes. Bringing your alert attention to the sensory experience of the moment. That transforms a chore into a meditative practice. Or think about interacting with people.
The example you gave of giving directions at an airport.
Right. You can just robotically point and speak. Or you can be rooted in your inner stillness, make eye contact, and deliver the same information, but also transmit a quality of presence, of calm. The person receives the information, but they might also feel, even unconsciously, a moment of peace. That's conscious doing in action.
That really changes the definition of impactful work, doesn't it?
It does. And this leads directly into the idea of conscious manifesting, which needs careful distinction from the usual law of attraction stuff.
Okay, how is it different? The sources do acknowledge that thought creates form, right?
Yes, they acknowledge the immense creative power of thought. It's real. But the crucial difference lies in the source of the thought, the source of the intention.
So distinguishing egoic wanting from something else.
Exactly. The ego's wanting power comes from that feeling of lack, of insufficiency. I need this outcome to be okay. It's usually driven by fear or a desire to bolster the ego. It's often quite frantic.
And conscious creation.
Conscious creation or conscious manifesting arises from that place of being, of inner connection. The energy is different. It's less about this is what I, the separate ego, demand, and more about sensing what wants to emerge through this form. What action feels aligned with this deeper intelligence right now?
So you shift from being the demanding controller to being more like a channel.
Yeah.
An instrument for a larger creativity.
Beautifully put, yes. You become a willing participant in the universal unfolding rather than a stressed-out manager trying to force specific outcomes based on personal desire.
Does that mean you don't have preferences anymore?
Not necessarily. You can still have preferences. You can still enjoy things. The key is enjoyment without attachment. You can appreciate beauty. You can create things. You can even acquire things, but without your core identity getting tangled up in them.
So I can admire a beautiful painting or even buy it, but the feeling isn't, this makes me a better or more complete person.
Right. You appreciate the form, the beauty, for what it is, but you know it's temporary, and your sense of self doesn't depend on owning it or having it last forever.
Which brings us to the burglar test.
Chuckle slightly. Yes,
Wow.
the burglar test. A slightly humorous but very effective way to gauge attachment. You might think you're totally non-attached to your lovely new possession. You just appreciate its form.
But then someone steals it.
Exactly, or it gets accidentally broken. Your reaction in that moment reveals the truth. If you feel deep upset, anger, violation, a sense that you have been diminished, Well, there was attachment there, hiding beneath the surface. Your identity was still linked to the form.
So true non-attachment is tested when the form is lost.
Yes. Conscious engagement allows you to appreciate and interact with forms while they're here, but with an underlying awareness of their impermanence, and knowing your true self is untouched by their coming and going. This freedom replaces compulsive behavior.
Like the compulsive need to shop or acquire.
Precisely. You're no longer driven by that inner lack, so the desperate need for external validation through forms diminishes. You can engage with the world of things from a place of choice and presence, not compulsion.
Okay, so this fusion of being and doing sounds ideal. But how do we make it practical? What's the starting point, the simplest way in?
The sources consistently point to one very direct, very accessible doorway into the formless, into being, and that's feeling the inner body.
The inner body, what exactly is that?
It's the feeling of aliveness within your physical body. Not thinking about your body, but feeling the subtle energy, the vibrancy in your hands, your feet, your torso, that sense of life pulsating within the form.
Ah, okay. Like just tuning into the feeling of being alive inside the skin?
Exactly. It's always there, beneath the mental noise and the external sensations, and it acts as a perfect bridge. It connects the formless, pure aliveness, consciousness with the physical form. By tuning into it, you're immediately accessing that deeper dimension.
So that's a practice I can do anywhere. Waiting in line, driving.
Anywhere, anytime. Bringing awareness to the inner body is a powerful anchor to the present moment, to being. You can bring that alert stillness into the most mundane activities. Driving through traffic, sitting in a boring meeting, walking down the street. Instead of being lost in thought, you feel the aliveness within.
You become the still point in the turning world, kind of.
In a way, yes. And that quiet presence you embody subtly affects the energy around you, too. But inevitably, while you're trying to do this, obstacles will arise. Things won't go as planned.
And that's the danger zone for the ego.
That's where the ego loves to jump back in. The clearest sign that you've lost conscious doing and slipped back into egoic reactivity is getting upset, resistance.
So the project gets delayed, someone says no, the tech fails. If I feel that wave of frustration, anger, blame, that's the signal.
That's the signal. You've lost your connection to being and become identified with the desired outcome, with the ego's plan. The ego feels thwarted and it reacts with negativity.
So what's the conscious response to an obstacle?
Non-resistance, which doesn't mean passivity or giving up. It means meeting the obstacle without internal opposition, looking at it, acknowledging, okay, this is what is happening right now, without the immediate layer of complaint or judgment.
Like looking at the traffic jam instead of mentally fighting against it.
Exactly. You look at it with what the sources call the penetrating gaze of presence, just awareness. Often, simply removing your resistance changes the energy. An alternative might appear a different route, a different approach.
Or you might see how to use the obstacle itself.
Yes. Sometimes the very force that seems to be blocking you can be skillfully navigated or even utilized once you stop fighting it. You align with the reality of the situation, and from that place of acceptance, intelligent action can arise.
So the key is recognizing that inner resistance, the complaining, the negativity, the fear, as the signal that you've lost presence. I remember that quote you mentioned.
I am never upset for the reason I think.
Right. That's powerful. The reason isn't the traffic or the person.
Those are just the surface triggers. The real reason you're upset is that you've lost the connection to your essence identity, to being. You've fallen back into the egoic state of perceived lack and separation. And an ego disconnected from being is always finding reasons to be upset because its fundamental state is dissatisfaction.
So my own feeling of upset is like an internal alarm bell. Beep. Ego alert.
Precisely. You don't need any external gadgets. Your own suffering, your own negativity is the perfectly calibrated feedback mechanism telling you you've drifted from presence.
Now, there's another trap here, isn't there? Especially for people who start experiencing stillness more often.
Ah, yes. A very subtle and dangerous one. The spiritual ego.
What's that?
It's when the ego appropriates spiritual experiences or concepts to create a new, improved, but still false identity. I am spiritual. I am more conscious than others. I have achieved stillness.
So it takes the experience of egolessness and makes it into another ego badge.
Exactly. It's incredibly sneaky. You start feeling superior because you meditate or because you understand these concepts. It uses the language of presence to reinforce separation and specialness. A terrible trap.
So what's the antidote to that? How do we avoid building a spiritual form identity?
The goal, according to the sources, is ultimately to walk around as nobody in particular, just presence, just
Nobody
aliveness.
in particular. That sounds freeing, but also maybe scary.
It can feel scary to the ego, which wants definition, but the freedom is immense. You use labels like your profession, doctor, teacher, parent as temporary functional roles when needed for communication in the world of form. But you don't carry them around in your head as who you are.
So being a doctor is what you do, not who you are.
Exactly. Carrying that identity internally all the time, needing others to recognize it, that's the burden, that's the trap. Because if you define yourself so strongly, you inevitably start defining others too, reducing them to fixed labels.
And comparing. Superior, inferior.
Always comparing. Which leads directly to things like gossip and negative talk about others. Making others seem smaller is a classic ego strategy to feel temporarily bigger or more righteous itself. It's a delusion built on form identity.
So the real freedom is letting go of the need to be a specific, defined somebody.
Yes. Just being present, available to the moment, using functions as needed, but resting in that underlying awareness that is undefined and free. And sometimes, the sources remind us, your greatest contribution might not be big, visible actions.
What do you mean?
For some people, their primary role in this shift of consciousness is simply to be a frequency holder, to embody presence, to walk through a garden or sit quietly, and just allow that quality of conscious awareness to flow into the world through them. That in itself is a profoundly valuable contribution, regardless of external achievements. Hashtag hat outro.
Wow. Okay, so bringing this all together, this deep dive really seems to clarify that the whole stillness versus action debate is maybe the wrong way to frame it.
It seems so. It's not a choice between them, but an integration with being, stillness, presence, that connection to essence as the absolute non-negotiable foundation.
And doing, or action, becomes conscious creation when it flows from that foundation, powered by that deeper intelligence, rather than being driven by the ego's needs and fears.
Exactly. The how becomes primary, allowing the source to express itself through your actions, whatever they may be.
And you left us with a really beautiful, almost poetic final thought to consider about the universe contemplating itself.
Yes. It's the idea that when you, rooted in presence, simply observe something, say, a flower without mental labels, just pure perception. In that moment, the universe is using your consciousness to become aware of its own beauty, its own sacredness, reflected in that flower.
So the flower doesn't know it's beautiful until consciousness perceives it.
In a sense, because ultimately there's no separation. Your consciousness and the consciousness or aliveness within the flower are part of the same one consciousness.
Yeah.
So through your aware perception, consciousness gets to experience itself in its manifested form.
That's a really profound way to think about simply being present. It's not just for my own peace, it's participating in something much larger.
It suggests that perhaps the highest contribution, the most fulfilled life, isn't necessarily about what you achieve externally, but about how transparent you allow your temporary form to become to that underlying light of consciousness, letting the eternal shine through the temporal.
Letting the person become transparent to the light. That's a practice to carry forward, isn't it? Every time we feel that pull between frantic doing and just collapsing, maybe the answer is simply presence.
That seems to be the core invitation. Thank you for exploring this with me today, and thank you, everyone listening, for joining us. We hope this offers some clarity and perhaps inspires your own practice. Feel free to share your thoughts.
Yes, thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive. Until next time, try bringing that presence, that quality of being, into whatever you find yourself doing.